In the middle of a busy afternoon, the restaurant is alive with the chatter of customers, the clinking of glasses, and the rhythmic clatter of kitchen staff working behind the scenes. Samuel, a successful millionaire with an air of quiet sophistication, sits at a corner table, isolated from the noise of the crowd. Dressed in an impeccable suit, he sips his coffee and glances at the newspaper, lost in the peaceful simplicity of his daily routine. His life seems like a well-oiled machine, predictable and controlled, a far cry from the chaos surrounding him in the restaurant. But then, without warning, the peace is shattered. A soft voice breaks through the hum of the restaurant, pulling Samuel out of his thoughts. He looks up to see a small boy standing before him, no older than 8 or 9. The boy's clothes are simple, ragged even, but it's his eyes, wide with fear and desperation, that draw Samuel's attention. The boy hesitates for a moment, then leans in closer, his voice barely a whisper. "Help my mom, please." Samuel freezes. His grip tightens around his coffee cup, and the words seem to echo in his mind. "Help my mom, please." His mind races, trying to make sense of the situation. Who is this boy? Why is he approaching a stranger, especially someone like Samuel, who is used to a world of luxury and success? The boy's plea seems out of place, a stark contrast to the well-dressed diners and the polished surroundings. Confusion clouds Samuel's thoughts, and for a moment he wonders if he's misheard. The boy's gaze never wavers, and it's in those few seconds of silence that Samuel feels the weight of the moment. This is no ordinary request. There is something in the boy's eyes, an urgency, a quiet panic that stirs something deep inside Samuel. The restaurant noise fades into the background as Samuel is gripped by a sense of unease. He knows, without fully understanding why, that this is not a situation he can ignore. As he looks at the boy, standing before him with an expression that seems far too mature for his age, Samuel is caught between his desire to remain detached and the undeniable pull to help. The routine of his life, his meeting, his comfort, all seem trivial now compared to the desperation in the boy's voice. This chance encounter, this brief moment, will turn his world upside down, setting him on a path that will change everything. Samuel blinks, still trying to process the boy's words, and takes a breath, his mind racing to catch up with the gravity of the situation. He looks down at the boy, whose small frame is trembling slightly, whether from fear or desperation. Samuel isn't sure. The boy's clothes are old and worn, his hair messy, and yet there's something about him that is impossible to ignore. A deep sense of urgency emanates from him, as if he's carrying the weight of the world in his eyes. Samuel, still unsure of what he's dealing with, clears his throat and leans forward slightly. "Who is your mom? What's going on?" Samuel asks, his voice calm but laced with concern. The boy hesitates, his eyes darting around the room as if to make sure no one is watching them too closely. He then looks back at Samuel, his voice barely above a whisper. "My mom. She's sick. She's in bed and she won't wake up. I don't know what to do. Please help her. She needs you." Samuel's brow furrows at the boy's words. "Where is she? What's happened to her?" he asks, his curiosity mixing with a growing sense of unease. He can feel the weight of the boy's plea sinking in, but his mind is still struggling to connect the dots. What could have caused such a situation? Why would a boy so young be here, in a restaurant, alone, seeking help from a stranger like him? Elijah swallows hard, his voice cracking with emotion. "She's in our apartment. She's been like that for days. She's unresponsive. I don't know what to do, and I'm scared." His eyes begin to well up with tears, but he holds them back, determined to remain strong. "I just need someone to help her, please." Samuel feels a lump form in his throat as he listens to the boy's words. The reality of the situation hits him like a wave. The boy is alone, scared, and in desperate need of help. Samuel's usual sense of detachment, his carefully cultivated distance from others, fades in the face of the boy's vulnerability. For a moment, Samuel is paralyzed by the weight of the decision before him. He's supposed to be at a business meeting, a crucial one, but everything in him wants to ignore that commitment. It feels insignificant now compared to the life and death situation the boy is facing. Samuel glances at his watch, seeing that he's running out of time. His mind races as he weighs the options. The meeting, the deal, everything he's been working toward. It all seems meaningless in the face of this child's distress. He can see it in Elijah's face, Hear it in his voice, the raw, unfiltered fear. It's a plea that resonates with something deep inside Samuel, a longing to do something that matters. For a brief moment, Samuel considers the practicality of his decision. His logical mind tells him that he has responsibilities, obligations that cannot be ignored. But then, the urgency in the boy's eyes pierces through all that, making it impossible to focus on anything but the immediate need before him. Samuel looks at Elijah, really looks at him, and sees not just a frightened child, but someone who is desperately trying to save the only family he has left. Samuel stands up from his chair, his decision made. "All right," he says, his voice steady but filled with determination. "I'll help. Take me to her." The boy's face lights up with a glimmer of hope, his posture relaxing as if a heavy burden has been lifted. Samuel doesn't hesitate, grabbing his coat and his phone. His meeting can wait. This is something far more important. He follows Elijah as the boy leads him out of the restaurant, and as they step into the cool air outside, Samuel feels the weight of his decision settle over him. The world, for just a moment, feels different. This isn't just a random encounter. It's a turning point, the beginning of a journey neither of them could have predicted. Samuel follows Elijah down the street, each step carrying him further from the comforts of his carefully structured life. The boy leads him through narrow alleyways and between towering buildings that look worn down by time. The hustle and bustle of the restaurant and city streets quickly fade as they enter a much quieter, more desolate part of town. The air grows thicker, the streets dirtier, and Samuel can feel the sharp contrast between the world he knows and the world Elijah is showing him. Eventually, they arrive at a rusty old car parked by the curb. The vehicle looks like it has seen better days, with dents along its sides and a layer of grime covering the windows. The engine sputters to life with a loud cough as Elijah slides into the driver's seat. Samuel hesitates for a moment before getting into the passenger side, glancing at the boy who seems oddly comfortable in the dilapidated car. As they begin to drive, the streets grow narrower and more unkempt. The houses and buildings they pass appear aged, some of them abandoned, others barely standing. The further they go, the more unsettling the journey becomes. Samuel glances at Elijah from time to time, noticing how the boy remains unusually quiet, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. There's a grim determination in his movements, as if this is a routine for him, a journey he's made too many times before. After what feels like an eternity, they finally pull up to a dilapidated apartment building. The building is dark, with peeling paint and broken windows that seem to be patched up hastily with old newspapers and plastic. It looks as though it's been forgotten by time, a place where people try to survive rather than live. Elijah doesn't say a word, but instead gets out of the car and motions for Samuel to follow him. Samuel steps out, his shoes clicking against the cracked pavement. He follows the boy up the stairs to the second floor of the building, the steps creaking beneath their weight. The hall smells musty, the air heavy with the scent of mildew and dampness. The walls are marked with stains, some that might be water damage, others that look much more sinister. Elijah leads him to the end of the hallway and stops in front of a door that is barely hanging on its hinges. The door opens with a low groan, revealing a dimly lit room. The small space is cramped and barely furnished, just a thin mattress on the floor, a small table with a chair, and scattered belongings piled in corners. The room feels cold and neglected. But what catches Samuel's attention most is the figure lying motionless on the bed. Elijah's mother is there, her body pale and still. She is wrapped in a thin, tattered blanket, her face ghostly and expressionless. There's no sign of movement, and Samuel can immediately sense the gravity of the situation. He moves closer to her, his pulse quickening as he kneels beside the bed. He gently reaches for her wrist to check for a pulse, but the lack of response sends a wave of anxiety through him. "She's not moving. She's not breathing, Elijah," Samuel says softly, his voice full of concern. He stands up, turning toward the boy. "We need to call an ambulance. Your mom needs help now." Elijah immediately shakes his head, his face contorting with fear. "No," he whispers urgently, his eyes wide with panic. "Please, no police, no ambulance. They'll take me away from her. I won't let them." Samuel hesitates, taken aback by the boy's reaction. "Elijah, your mom is very sick. She might not make it without medical help. We can't just leave her like this. No, please. We need to get her to a hospital. But Elijah steps forward, his small frame trembling with the weight of his fear. They'll take me away, he says, his voice cracking. I don't want to be alone. Please, I don't want to go to foster care. Please, don't call them. Samuel feels a pang in his chest as he watches the boy, whose eyes are filled with a mixture of desperation and grief. The thought of an innocent child being torn from his only family, his only comfort, is heartbreaking. Samuel knows that calling emergency services could mean Elijah would be placed into the foster system, something the boy is terrified of. It's a terrible situation, and Samuel wrestles internally, torn between what he knows is right, getting medical help for the mother, and the boy's wishes. All right, Samuel finally says, his voice filled with compassion. I won't call anyone right now, but we need to do something. Let me stay with you, and we'll figure it out together. The boy looks up at Samuel, his eyes still full of uncertainty. But there's a faint glimmer of hope in them. For a moment, it feels as if the weight of the world has been lifted from his small shoulders. Samuel doesn't know what the next step is, but he promises himself that he won't let Elijah go through this alone. The journey has only just begun, and the road ahead is uncertain. But Samuel knows one thing for sure. He can't leave this boy to face it alone. Samuel watches Elijah closely, feeling a deep sense of sympathy for the boy's distress. His heart aches as he sees how terrified Elijah is at the thought of being separated from his mother. The fear in Elijah's eyes is raw and unmistakable. This is not a child simply afraid of the unknown. This is a child who has already experienced the pain of abandonment, and he is not willing to go through it again. Samuel feels the weight of his decision more than ever. The thought of not calling emergency services, of not getting help for the mother right away, goes against every instinct he has. The woman on the bed looks gravely ill, and Samuel knows that without immediate medical intervention, she may not survive much longer. But looking at Elijah, seeing how fiercely the boy clings to the idea of staying with his mother, Samuel can't bring himself to disregard the boy's plea. The truth is, the child's pain is so palpable that it tugs at something inside Samuel, something deeper than the logic of calling for help. I understand, Samuel says, his voice calm but firm, trying to reassure Elijah. I won't let them take you away from her, I promise. But we need to do something. I'm not going to leave you alone in this. Elijah nods slowly, his expression still fraught with fear, but there's a sense of relief in his eyes as well. For the first time since they arrived, Samuel can see a glimmer of hope in the boy, a fragile trust beginning to form between them. Samuel stands up and begins to pace the small room, his mind racing. He's a man of action, a man used to solving problems with money, power, and connections. But this situation, this little boy and his sick mother, is beyond any business deal or legal maneuver he's ever known. There are no easy solutions here, no quick fixes. Samuel is acutely aware of the responsibility he's just taken on by making this promise to Elijah. The room feels colder now, as if the gravity of the situation has seeped into the very walls. The sound of the mother's labored breathing is almost drowned out by the pounding of Samuel's heart in his chest. He glances at the boy, who is standing by the door, his small hands wringing together, his gaze never leaving his mother. All right, Samuel says, his voice breaking the silence. We'll figure this out. I won't let them separate you two, but I need to know more. What exactly happened to her? How long has she been like this? Elijah hesitates, looking down at the floor for a moment, before speaking again in a voice barely above a whisper. She got sick a few days ago. She's been getting worse and worse. She can't move. She can't talk. She just lies there. I don't know what to do. His words trail off, and Samuel can see the raw pain in the boy's eyes as he struggles to hold back tears. I don't want to lose her. The desperation in Elijah's voice strikes Samuel to his core. The boy is clearly doing everything in his power to keep it together, to be strong for his mother, even though he's barely more than a child himself. Samuel feels a surge of empathy for the boy, but also a deep frustration. He wants to fix things, to make everything better for Elijah and his mother, but right now he feels helpless. I know you're scared, Elijah, Samuel says softly, walking toward the boy and placing a hand on his shoulder. But we can't do nothing. We have to get your mom help. I don't know exactly how we'll do that, but we'll figure it out. I promise you that. Elijah looks up at him, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. But how? I don't want her to be taken away. I don't want to be alone. Samuel's mind is spinning. His wealth, his influence, his connections. They all seem like distant things now, irrelevant in the face of the real human need before him. He thinks of his own family, of the children he knows, and the deep bond that ties a parent to a child. He can't imagine what it would be like to be torn from a loved one, to be alone with no one to trust. I'm going to stay with you, okay? Samuel says after a pause. I'm not going anywhere. We'll keep your mom safe. We just need to make sure she gets the care she needs, and I'm going to help you with that. Samuel looks back at the mother, still lying motionless on the bed. His mind races, trying to figure out the next steps. He can't just wait around, hoping things will magically get better. He pulls out his phone and dials a number, his heart pounding in his chest. His business contacts, people he's worked with over the years, could help him now, he thinks. He needs to call someone who can assist, who might know a way to get medical help without alerting authorities. He takes a deep breath, hoping that whoever picks up will be able to help him navigate this delicate situation. As he waits for the call to connect, Samuel glances at Elijah, who is still standing quietly by his mother's side. The boy's trust is fragile, and Samuel knows that every moment counts. He's not just trying to save a life. He's trying to give this boy a chance to keep his family together. The phone rings, each second stretching longer than the last. Samuel's fingers tremble slightly, holds the device to his ear, trying to steady his breathing. The air in the room feels thick, oppressive, as though time itself has slowed to a crawl. He glances at Elijah, whose small form is huddled by his mother's bedside, his eyes never leaving her face. The boy looks exhausted, both physically and emotionally drained, his small shoulders sagging under the weight of uncertainty. Samuel feels a pang of guilt at the thought of leaving the boy to face this alone, but he knows he has to make the right call now if he's to keep his promise. Finally, the call connects. Hello? The voice on the other end is familiar, the voice of a longtime friend and lawyer, a man who Samuel trusts implicitly. David, it's Samuel. I need your help, Samuel says, his voice low but urgent. I'm in a situation with a young boy and his mother. She's gravely ill, she's unresponsive, and he's terrified of being separated from her. I don't know what to do. I can't just call an ambulance, not yet. We need to find a way to get her help without involving authorities. There's a pause on the other end of the line, and Samuel can hear the sharp intake of breath from David. He knows that his friend understands the gravity of the situation. David has always been a man of solutions, someone who thrives in the most difficult circumstances. But Samuel can hear the hesitation in his voice as he responds. That's not an easy request, Samuel. You're treading on some delicate ground here, especially with child services. You might not have much time. Samuel's heart races. He knows that every moment is precious, but he won't back down. I understand that, but I need a way to help this boy and his mother without tearing them apart. I can't let that happen. Please, David, is there anything we can do to get her the care she needs without involving the system? David's sigh over the phone feels heavy, but then there's a shift in his tone. I can reach out to a few contacts. There may be a way to get a nurse or a private medical professional to come in under the radar. It won't be easy, but it's possible. I'll work on it. Just stay calm, Samuel. Don't make any rash decisions. Samuel's shoulders sag in relief. At least now there's a path forward, even if it's uncertain. Thanks, David. Please hurry. He ends the call and looks back at Elijah, who is still standing motionless by the bed, his eyes wide with fear and anxiety. Hey, Samuel says gently, stepping closer to the boy, trying to offer reassurance despite his own growing unease. I've called someone to help. We're not going to let anything happen to your mom. I won't leave you. Elijah doesn't respond at first, his face still pale and tense. It's as if he's waiting for something concrete, some sign that things will be okay. Samuel kneels beside him, his voice soft but firm. You're not alone in this. We're in this together. The boy looks up at Samuel, his lips trembling as he finally speaks. Do you really think she'll be okay? His voice is small, filled with a sadness that Samuel can't even begin to fathom. I don't want to lose her. She's all I have. Samuel feels his throat tighten at the boy's words. He wants to tell Elijah that everything will be fine, that his mother will wake up, and that they'll both walk out of this situation unscathed. But he can't make those promises. What he can promise, though, is that he won't give up, that he will keep fighting for both of them. I don't know what will happen, Samuel admits, his voice heavy with sincerity, but I do know that we'll do everything we can. You won't be alone, Elijah. I'm here. The boy nods slowly, his gaze flicking back to his mother. The room is silent except for the faint sound of her breathing, slow and shallow. The tension that hangs in the air is thick, like a storm ready to break. Neither Samuel nor Elijah knows exactly what the future holds, but they both feel the uncertainty pressing down on them, making every moment feel heavier than the last. Samuel sits beside Elijah, his hand resting gently on the boy's shoulder, offering what little comfort he can in this moment of limbo. The uncertainty feels endless, and Samuel can't help but worry that time is running out. His mind races with possibilities and next steps, but for now, all he can do is wait and keep his promise to Elijah. He has to believe that somehow, together, they'll find a way through this. Minutes feel like hours as the silence in the room grows heavier, and Samuel can't shake the feeling that they're standing on the edge of something far bigger than either of them ever anticipated. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Samuel will not turn his back on this boy, no matter what happens. The weight of the situation presses down on Samuel as he paces the small, dimly lit apartment. Elijah is sitting quietly beside his mother, his eyes vacant, as if lost in the uncertainty of the moment. Samuel knows that the boy's future, his very safety, is hanging in the balance. And with every passing minute, the urgency of the situation grows. He can't sit idly by any longer. Something needs to be done, and fast. Without wasting another moment, Samuel pulls out his phone and contacts David again. This time, there's no hesitation in his voice. David, I need to take the next step. We can't just wait for someone to come help. I need legal assistance to make sure Elijah is safe, to make sure his mother is cared for. I need temporary guardianship for him. David's voice is quick, as if he's already prepared for this request. I've got a few legal experts I can connect you with, but you need to understand, Samuel, getting guardianship, even temporarily, is not a simple process. The courts don't hand that kind of thing out without serious scrutiny. I don't care, Samuel responds, his voice firm. I'm not going to leave him with nothing. I'll do whatever it takes. David pauses before answering. All right, I'll make the calls. Meet me in an hour. I'll get you started on the paperwork, and we'll figure out the best path forward. With a sense of purpose, Samuel hangs up and turns back to Elijah. The boy hasn't moved. His face is still pale, his eyes constantly flicking to his mother, worried, helpless. Samuel kneels down beside him, his voice gentle. I'm going to make sure you and your mom are taken care of. I'm getting help, and we're going to do everything we can. I promise you won't be alone. Elijah looks up at Samuel, his gaze searching for any sign of hope. Do you really think it will work? He asks quietly, his voice trembling with doubt. I do. Samuel replies with conviction. I'll make sure of it. The next hour feels like an eternity. Samuel drives across town, the streets blurring by as he focuses solely on the task at hand. His mind is swirling with legal terms, potential obstacles, and questions about what will happen to Elijah if he can't get guardianship in time. He meets with David and his contacts, a small but seasoned team of lawyers who specialize in child welfare and family law. The process begins immediately, with mountains of paperwork to be filled out, forms to sign, and countless calls to be made. But as the hours pass, the gravity of what he's trying to do settles in. Samuel is not just trying to help a child in need. He's trying to challenge an entire system that isn't always kind or forgiving. The legal barriers are daunting, and he knows that even with all his resources, there are no guarantees. But Samuel is undeterred. He's in this for the long haul now. With the paperwork finally in order, Samuel returns to Elijah's apartment. His heart sinks as he steps through the door. Nothing has changed. Elijah is still by his mother's side, her condition unchanged, and the atmosphere in the room remains thick with tension. Samuel knows they can't wait forever. Every second feels like it could be the one that makes all the difference. As the days drag on, Samuel continues to fight for the boy's right to stay with his mother. contacting legal teams, pushing for any kind of temporary guardianship that might help. But each step forward feels like two steps back. Child services remains a looming presence, and there's constant worry about whether Elijah might be placed in foster care, separated from his only remaining family. During one particularly difficult meeting with a child services representative, Samuel finds himself growing frustrated. "I'm doing everything I can to make sure Elijah stays with his mother," Samuel argues, his voice calm but firm. "But you have to understand, this is an emergency. I can't let him be taken away from her, not when she's in this state. I need temporary guardianship so I can make sure he's safe." The child services representative looks at him sympathetically, but her response is firm. "Mr. Samuel, I understand your concerns, but we have to follow protocol. It's not just about the mother's condition, it's about Elijah's safety and well-being. We can't allow just anyone to take guardianship without ensuring they meet all the necessary criteria." Samuel fights the frustration rising within him. He knows they're following the rules, but those rules seem to be standing in the way of something that's right in front of them. Elijah needs help, and he needs it now. The paperwork for temporary guardianship moves at a glacial pace, and with every passing day, the tension in the apartment becomes more unbearable. Elijah is growing more withdrawn, and Samuel knows that, more than anything, the boy just needs stability, needs to feel safe again. The process may be slow, but Samuel won't stop pushing. He doesn't care how many times he has to meet with lawyers or navigate the maze of child welfare laws. He will get guardianship for Elijah. In the meantime, Samuel continues to care for the boy, providing him with food, comfort, and stability in the small moments. He makes sure Elijah knows that he's not alone, not now, not ever again. Even as the legal battle wears on, Samuel is there, doing everything he can to ensure that Elijah stays with his mother and that the boy is protected through the chaos. As the paperwork starts to progress, Samuel can see a small glimmer of hope on the horizon. But there's still so much to be done, and he knows that the road ahead will be long and fraught with challenges. Yet, despite everything, Samuel is steadfast. His commitment to helping Elijah is stronger than ever, and he knows that this fight for the boy's future, is one he can't walk away from. The legal process is slow, and Samuel feels the weight of the uncertainty pressing on him with every passing day. Child Services has yet to grant him guardianship, and each meeting with them feels like a battle that he might not win. But despite the bureaucratic hurdles, Samuel knows one thing for sure: he cannot let Elijah suffer any longer. The boy has been through enough trauma, and while they wait for the legal wheels to turn, Samuel is determined to make the present as stable as possible for Elijah. Samuel moves into the apartment with Elijah and his mother. He doesn't think twice about it. It's not just about doing what's right. It's about making sure Elijah feels that he has someone he can count on. The apartment is small, cramped, and damp, far from ideal for a boy trying to heal from the wounds of neglect and fear, but it's the only place they have. Samuel does his best to make it a little brighter. He brings in a few new blankets, some toys, and simple art supplies, things that might bring Elijah a sense of normalcy, even if for a moment. Each morning, Samuel gets up early to prepare breakfast. He makes sure the boy eats, watches as he slowly becomes more accustomed to the routine of waking up with a stable figure beside him. It's not much, but it's a start. He watches carefully as Elijah begins to show small signs of opening up, though the boy still spends most of his time in silence, often staring at his mother, whose condition remains unchanged. One afternoon, after a long meeting with Child Services, Samuel comes home to find Elijah sitting quietly at the small kitchen table, a pencil in hand. He's sketching something on a scrap of paper, the lines shaky but deliberate. Samuel watches for a moment before gently sitting down across from him. "What are you drawing?" Samuel asks softly, trying not to interrupt the boy's concentration. Elijah glances up briefly, his eyes filled with sadness. "A house," he murmurs. "A big house, with a yard, for my mom and me." Samuel nods, understanding the weight behind the simple drawing. Elijah doesn't say much, but Samuel can see the longing in the boy's eyes, the hope that things might someday be different. He can't promise the boy a big house, not right now, but he can promise him something else: safety, security, and the knowledge that he is loved. "That's a beautiful house, Elijah," Samuel says, offering him a reassuring smile. Maybe one day we can make that dream come true, huh? Elijah doesn't respond, but he offers a small, tentative smile. For the first time in days, Samuel feels a flicker of relief in his chest. It's a small sign of progress, but it's a sign nonetheless. As the days pass, Samuel continues to keep Elijah occupied with activities that bring him comfort. He teaches him to play chess, patiently explaining the moves and strategy, despite Elijah's initial resistance. Over time, the boy begins to understand, and the two of them spend hours lost in games, their quiet conversations growing in depth. Elijah opens up just a little, talking about his favorite games, his dreams, and the things he misses. It's a small thing, but it's a step toward healing. Samuel also makes sure to take the boy out of the apartment from time to time. They go for walks through the city, taking in the fresh air and watching the world go by. Sometimes they stop at a park where Samuel watches as Elijah hesitantly approaches the swings before finally allowing himself to sit and push himself back and forth. It's a small moment of childlike joy, a brief escape from the stress that constantly weighs on them both. Despite the simplicity of these moments, they are vital. Samuel understands that Elijah doesn't need grand gestures right now. He needs stability, reassurance, and to feel that there's a future ahead of him, a future where he's not alone, where he can have hope again. One evening, as the two of them sit together in the dimly lit apartment, drawing and talking, Samuel feels a sudden swell of affection for this boy who has captured his heart. He's come to see Elijah as more than just a child in need. He's a son in every way that matters. "I know things aren't easy right now," Samuel says, his voice soft, "but you're not alone. I'll be here, always." Elijah looks up at him then, his face softening, his eyes full of a trust that has been slowly rebuilding. "I know," he whispers, his voice barely audible. "I feel safe with you." It's a simple statement, but for Samuel, it means the world. He realizes in that moment that everything he's doing, every step he's taken, every obstacle he's fought is worth it. He won't let Elijah go through this alone. He's here, not just for the boy, but for the boy's mother too. Samuel's mind still races with legal concerns, with the slow crawl of the courts, and with the daunting challenges that lie ahead. But in this moment, as he watches Elijah drawing quietly, a sense of peace settles over him. Despite the uncertainty, despite the pain they're both enduring, Samuel knows that together they will find a way forward. The days that follow are a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and meetings. Despite the small moments of peace that Samuel shares with Elijah, the looming legal battle continues to occupy his mind. Each day feels like a step forward, but with every new form he signs and every new conversation with his lawyers, Samuel feels the pressure mounting. The weight of the responsibility on his shoulders grows heavier, and the constant uncertainty gnaws at him. Samuel knows that Elijah's future is hanging in the balance, and while the boy is starting to trust him more each day, Samuel can't shake the fear he might not be able to protect him in the way he needs to. The legal process is slow and complex, and even with his resources and connections, Samuel can't help but wonder if it will all be enough. That night, after a long day of meetings, Samuel comes home to find Elijah sitting quietly at the kitchen table again, his pencil hovering over a new piece of paper. The boy has been drawing more lately, and Samuel can see the effort he's putting into his sketches. But there's something different in the air tonight. A quiet sadness that Samuel can't ignore. Elijah isn't the same carefree child he once was. He's carrying a weight much too heavy for his small shoulders. Samuel sits down beside him, not saying anything at first. He watches as the boy draws a picture of two figures holding hands, standing beside a house, the sun shining brightly above them. "Who are they?" Samuel asks softly. Elijah looks up, his eyes clouded with a mix of emotions. "That's me and my mom," he says quietly, his voice almost a whisper. "And one day, we'll be okay. We'll be happy." Samuel's heart aches at the words. He wants to tell Elijah that they will be okay, that he will make sure of it. But the truth is, Samuel doesn't have all the answers. The only thing he can promise is that he will fight for Elijah, for his mother, and for the future they deserve. After Elijah goes to bed that night, Samuel sits down with his wife, Olivia. The weight of the conversation ahead hangs between them. Olivia has been supportive of Samuel's decision to help Elijah, but the toll it's taken on him is clear. The late nights, the stress, the emotional exhaustion, it's been a lot for both of them. Samuel, you've been fighting so hard for Elijah, Olivia says, her voice gentle but filled with concern. But I can see how much it's wearing you down. You can't do this alone. You don't have to. Samuel looks up at her, his eyes filled with both determination and fatigue. I can't stop now, Olivia. I promised him I'd protect him. I can't let him fall through the cracks. He's been through so much, and I can't let him face this alone. Olivia reaches for his hand, her touch comforting. I know you're doing everything you can, but you need to remember, Samuel, you don't have to carry this burden alone. We're in this together. We'll figure it out, whatever it takes. Her words bring him a sense of relief, but the truth is, Samuel knows the road ahead will still be difficult. The legal battle is far from over, and despite his determination, he still faces a fight that feels insurmountable at times. But with Olivia by his side, he feels a renewed sense of strength. The next day, Samuel gathers the necessary documents and starts preparing for the next phase of the process. He meets with his lawyer again, reviewing the steps they need to take to secure temporary guardianship for Elijah. The paperwork is complex, but Samuel doesn't hesitate. He fills out each form meticulously, knowing that every detail could make the difference in the fight to keep Elijah safe. Despite his growing exhaustion, Samuel's resolve is unwavering. He refuses to let Elijah slip through the cracks of a broken system. There's too much at stake, too much that he can't let go of. Every meeting with child services, every call with his lawyer brings him closer to the goal of securing guardianship. But it's a long, slow process, and Samuel knows that even with all the resources he has, there are no guarantees. As the weeks pass, the legal hurdles become more challenging. There are hearings to attend, more paperwork to file, and always the uncertainty of what will happen next. But Samuel presses on. Every moment spent with Elijah, every smile, every small step of progress is a reminder of why he's doing this. One evening, after another long day of legal battles, Samuel returns to the apartment to find Elijah playing with a toy car, his face brightened by a rare moment of joy. It's a simple thing, but it means the world to Samuel. It's a sign that the boy is starting to feel some sense of security, even amid the chaos. Hey, buddy, Samuel says, kneeling beside him. How about we go out for a walk, just the two of us? Elijah looks up, his eyes meeting Samuel's. There's a flicker of something, hope maybe, before he nods silently. As they walk out into the cool evening air, Samuel feels a quiet sense of peace. The road ahead is still uncertain, and the legal battle may continue for some time, but for now, in this moment, they are together. And that's enough. Samuel holds on to that thought, knowing that no matter how hard the fight becomes, he won't give up. He will keep fighting for Elijah, for his future, and for the chance to give him a life filled with love and stability. The day of the court hearing arrives, and the weight of it all hangs heavy on Samuel's shoulders. He can feel the tension in the air as they walk into the cold, sterile courtroom. The tall windows cast long shadows across the room, and the noise of people coming and going echoes through the hallways. For the first time since this journey began, Samuel feels a deep sense of fear. This is the final test, the moment that will decide Elijah's future. Elijah walks beside him, clutching his hand tightly. The boy's face is drawn, his normally quiet demeanor now even more reserved. Samuel can tell Elijah is scared, but he's also determined, just like Samuel. Neither of them speaks as they take their seats in the small, uncomfortable chairs. The courtroom is filled with voices, some supportive, others more distant, as lawyers shuffle through paperwork and the judge reads through the case. Samuel's lawyer briefs him on the proceedings. But even with all the preparation, Samuel can't help but feel a knot tightening in his chest. He knows they've done everything they can, but there are no guarantees. The stakes are too high, and Samuel wonders if it's enough. The proceedings begin, and the questions come fast. The judge asks Samuel about his background, his ability to provide for Elijah, and how well he knows the boy's needs. Samuel answers each question as honestly and confidently as he can. But his mind keeps drifting back to Elijah, the little boy sitting quietly beside him, whose future depends on the outcome of this hearing. Samuel knows that no matter how many legal arguments are made, it will come down to one thing: Elijah's voice. After what feels like hours of legal jargon and questioning, the judge finally turns to Elijah. It's a moment Samuel has feared and hoped for all at once. The boy, who has been so silent throughout this entire ordeal, is now asked the most important question of all. Elijah. The judge's voice is calm, but there's an edge of seriousness in it. Do you want to stay with Mr. Samuel? The room falls silent, and Samuel's heart races in his chest. He glances down at Elijah, whose small hand is still tightly clasped in his. The boy looks up at him, and for the briefest moment their eyes lock. There's an unspoken understanding between them. Samuel has been with Elijah through so much. They've fought together, healed together, and now, more than anything, Samuel wants this to be the moment that cements their future. Elijah takes a deep breath, and for the first time in days, he speaks. His voice is soft, barely audible, but clear enough to hear. Yes, Elijah whispers, his eyes never leaving Samuel's. I want to stay with Samuel. The words echo in the quiet room. A wave of relief washes over Samuel, and for the first time, he feels the weight of the past few weeks lift. Just a little. Elijah has chosen him. Despite all the uncertainty, despite the odds stacked against them, Elijah has chosen to trust him. It's all Samuel needs to hear. The judge nods solemnly, scribbling something in his notes. He doesn't speak for a moment, but the tension in the room is palpable. Everyone knows the significance of Elijah's answer. The room feels heavier now, and Samuel holds his breath, waiting for the final decision. After a few more moments, the judge looks up, his expression serious but soft. Based on the testimony and Elijah's wishes, we will grant Mr. Samuel temporary guardianship of Elijah. The court will proceed with further investigations into the long-term guardianship, but for now, Elijah will remain in Mr. Samuel's care. A rush of emotions floods through Samuel. Relief, joy, exhaustion, it's all there, crashing over him in an instant. He looks down at Elijah, who is staring up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. And then, to Samuel's surprise, the boy smiles. It's a small smile, tentative at first, but it's real. Samuel's heart swells in his chest. They've done it. The fight isn't over, but this is a victory. A small one, perhaps, but it's theirs. And it's enough to keep moving forward. The gavel slams down, the official verdict delivered. Samuel feels his shoulders relax, and for the first time in a long time, he allows himself to breathe. The future is still uncertain, but for now, Elijah is safe. Samuel's promise to him, to protect him, to give him a future, is being fulfilled one step at a time. As they leave the courtroom, Samuel holds Elijah's hand tightly, guiding him through the crowd. The boy walks beside him, his steps a little lighter, his head held a little higher. Though the legal battle is far from over, today they've won something more important. Elijah has found a place in Samuel's world, a home where he belongs, and together they'll face whatever comes next. As they step out into the sunlight, Samuel glances down at Elijah, smiling. "We did it," he says quietly. Elijah looks up at him, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Yeah, we did." For the first time in what feels like forever, they both dare to hope. The weight of the court hearing still lingers, but for the first time in what feels like an eternity, Samuel and Elijah begin to breathe easier. The legal battle, though far from over, has taken a crucial step forward. Now, with temporary guardianship in place, they can focus on the next chapter, the part where they rebuild, heal, and create something new together. It's a slow process, but they begin with small steps. The first thing Samuel does is take Elijah to a local art supply store. He watches as Elijah's eyes light up at the rows of paints, brushes, and sketchbooks, things that Samuel never thought would hold such significance. For the boy, they aren't just materials for creating art. They're tools for rebuilding a sense of normalcy and joy in his life. Samuel picks out a set of watercolor paints, a few brushes, and a large sketch pad, carefully placing them in the basket. Elijah's face lights up with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. He clutches the supplies tightly, almost as if he can't believe this is real. "You can draw anything you want, Elijah," Samuel says, his voice filled with warmth. "Let's see what you can create." Elijah looks up at him, his eyes shining. "Thanks, Samuel. I'll make something special." Back at the apartment, Samuel sets up a corner in the living room for Elijah to paint. The walls are still bare, and the space feels sparse, but there's something hopeful in the air now, a quiet sense of possibility. As Elijah settles down with his new art supplies, Samuel watches from the kitchen, making lunch. He doesn't intrude. He just watches, content in knowing that Elijah is starting to feel at home. Their first meal together as a new family is simple: pasta with a little garlic bread and a side salad, but it's filled with meaning. They sit at the small kitchen table, no longer weighed down by the uncertainty that once hung over them. There's a lightness in the air now, a feeling of warmth and safety that Samuel has been working so hard to provide. As they eat, they talk, slowly at first, but more comfortably as the meal goes on. Elijah shares stories of his life before all this, of the days when his mother was well, of the little things he remembers from better times. It's not easy for him, but there's something cathartic about talking, about sharing pieces of his past. Samuel listens attentively, offering reassurance when Elijah falters, giving him the space to process without judgment. When dinner is done, Samuel cleans up while Elijah continues to sketch in his corner. For the first time in a long while, the boy seems truly absorbed in something, lost in the act of creation. It's a beautiful sight to see, the boy who had been so withdrawn now finding peace in a simple activity. It's a sign that he's starting to feel a sense of stability, and that, perhaps, he's beginning to heal. Over the next few weeks, the changes continue. Elijah grows more comfortable in their apartment, finding his place in the small routines they establish. Samuel encourages him to keep drawing, and gradually, Elijah's sketches begin to tell a story. One of resilience, of a boy who's learning to trust again, of a future that doesn't have to be defined by loss or uncertainty. At night, Samuel reads to him before bed. Nothing too complicated, just simple stories of adventure and kindness. Elijah listens quietly at first, but eventually he starts to ask questions about the characters, about what happens next. And with each new question, Samuel feels a bond growing between them, a quiet connection that strengthens their relationship. One evening, after a long day, Samuel and Elijah sit on the couch together, watching a movie. The boy is no longer so hesitant, no longer so withdrawn. He leans against Samuel's shoulder, his small hand resting on his knee. It's a small gesture, but it speaks volumes. Samuel gently pats his hand, a silent promise that no matter what happens next, they are in this together. "Are you okay, Elijah?" Samuel asks softly, looking down at the boy who has come so far in such a short time. Elijah nods, a small, contented smile spreading across his face. "Yeah, I'm okay." It's a simple answer, but for Samuel, it's everything. In that moment, he knows that they've made it. They've overcome the darkest part of their journey, and though the future still holds its challenges, they have each other. They're building something new, something better. Together, they are creating a life, one step at a time. As the weeks go by, Samuel continues to make sure Elijah has everything he needs. They go on trips to the park, take walks in the neighborhood, and even start going to a local art class where Elijah begins to learn more about painting and sketching. The boy is beginning to flourish, his natural talent starting to emerge as he learns new techniques and experiments with color and form. It's not just about the art, though. It's about Elijah finding joy again, finding something to look forward to, and knowing that he is not alone anymore. Samuel is there, every step of the way. One morning, as Samuel is making breakfast, Elijah runs into the kitchen, his face bright with excitement. "Samuel, look what I made," he says, holding up a painting. Samuel turns around, his heart swelling as he looks at the vibrant colors on the canvas. It's a picture of the two of them, Samuel and Elijah, standing together, smiling under a bright sun, with a house in the background. The house isn't perfect, but it doesn't need to be. What matters is the feeling it conveys, the hope, the safety, and the love that's now a part of their life. "This is beautiful, Elijah," Samuel says, his voice thick with emotion. Elijah smiles shyly, his eyes bright. "I made it for you, for us." It's a simple gesture, but it's a powerful one. In that moment, Samuel knows that they've built something real, a family, a bond, a future. And with that, they take another step forward, together. The weeks turn into months, and though the initial shock has passed, the journey Samuel and Elijah embarked upon is far from over. The legal battle for permanent guardianship is still in full swing, with Samuel working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure Elijah's future remains secure. Every day, there are new forms to fill out, meetings to attend, and calls to be made. But Samuel never wavers in his commitment to the boy. He knows the fight is far from easy. But he also knows that Elijah is worth every effort. Every morning, Samuel checks in with Child Services, liaising with his lawyer, making sure the legal proceedings move forward. But he also makes time for Elijah, never forgetting that it's not just about paperwork and laws. It's about the boy's well-being, his emotional health, and his sense of security. Samuel's efforts don't go unnoticed. Elijah can feel the constant care and love Samuel has for him, even when the days are long and difficult. There are moments when the weight of the legal system threatens to overwhelm them both. At times, the future seems uncertain, and the obstacles they face feel insurmountable. The hearings drag on, and Elijah's nerves often get the best of him. But through it all, Samuel stays by his side. He continues to reassure Elijah that they're in this together, that no matter what happens, they'll face it as a team. "I'm not going anywhere, Elijah," Samuel tells him one evening as they sit at the kitchen table. The soft glow of the lamp casts a warm light across their small home, and Elijah is working on his latest drawing. "You're not alone. We're family now, and I'm going to make sure you're safe. I'll never leave you." Elijah looks up at Samuel, his face filled with a mixture of relief and gratitude. There's still uncertainty in his eyes, but there's also trust. For the first time in his life, Elijah knows what it feels like to be cared for unconditionally. He knows Samuel will do whatever it takes to keep him safe. "I know Samuel," Elijah whispers, his voice filled with quiet emotion. "Thank you." With each passing day, their bond grows stronger. Elijah begins to trust not just Samuel's words, but his actions. Samuel's dedication to him isn't just something he says, it's something Elijah can see and feel in the way he's cared for, the way he's never been abandoned or left to face the world alone. Samuel has proven that to him, time and again. In the quiet moments at home, they share simple joys, a cup of hot cocoa on a rainy afternoon, a game of checkers after dinner, or a quiet evening spent reading together. These moments, small though they may seem, are the foundation of their new life. They are reminders that even in the face of hardship, there is always room for love and warmth. As time goes on, the court hearings become less frequent, but the uncertainty still lingers. There are legal hurdles to overcome, investigations to be completed, and the occasional doubt that creeps into Samuel's mind. But with Elijah's smile, with his laughter, and with his newfound sense of belonging, Samuel finds the strength to push forward. One afternoon, after another long day of legal meetings, Samuel sits down with Elijah. The boy is sitting at the kitchen table, his head bent low as he works on a new drawing. Samuel takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything they've been through. "Elijah," Samuel begins, his voice quiet but firm. "I just want you to know something. Whatever happens, no matter what the courts decide, you're my son now. You've always been my son. Nothing changes that." Elijah's hand pauses, his pencil hovering over the page. He slowly looks up, his eyes wide, as if he's hearing these words for the first time. "You mean it?" Elijah asks softly, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and fear. Samuel nods, his heart full. "I mean it. No matter what happens, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'll fight for you every day, and I'll always be here for you. You don't ever have to worry about being alone again." Tears well up in Elijah's eyes, but he blinks them away quickly, as if to hide his emotions. Samuel reaches out, gently placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, offering the reassurance that words alone can't convey. "I trust you," Elijah says quietly, the sincerity in his voice unmistakable. The bond between them is unbreakable now. Through all the trials and hardships, they've found something solid, a connection forged in love, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment. It's a bond that will carry them through whatever challenges lie ahead. Finally, the day arrives when the court delivers its final ruling. Samuel and Elijah sit together in the same small courtroom where so many of their struggles began. Their lawyer stands beside them, his expression calm but confident. This time, the room is filled with a sense of quiet anticipation. They've been through so much, and now the final decision will be made. As the judge speaks, the words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. Based on the evidence and Elijah's wishes, the court grants Mr. Samuel full guardianship of Elijah. The boy's future is secure. The relief that floods Samuel's body is overwhelming. It feels as if the entire weight of the world has been lifted off his shoulders. Elijah looks up at him, his eyes wide with disbelief, before a smile spreads across his face. For the first time, He can see a future, his future, with Samuel by his side. As they leave the courtroom together, Samuel's hand firmly holding Elijah's, they both know that the battle is over. They've faced the darkest moments, and now they can move forward, together, into a future filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. In the months that follow the court ruling, Samuel and Elijah settle into a peaceful routine. The weight of uncertainty has been replaced with a sense of security, but there is still work to be done. Samuel remains steadfast in his commitment to Elijah, understanding that their journey, while transformative, is just beginning. He continues to help Elijah with his studies, ensuring that the boy has every opportunity to succeed. Samuel patiently works through lessons, offering encouragement and support with each new challenge Elijah faces in his education. Elijah, who once struggled to find confidence in himself, begins to thrive under Samuel's care. The boy's natural curiosity and love for learning are reignited. Samuel ensures that Elijah has access to everything he needs to grow academically: books, tutors, and the time to explore his interests. He encourages Elijah to set goals, to dream big, and to see himself not as a boy who's been abandoned, but as someone with limitless potential. Their home, once bare and filled with uncertainty, now feels full of life and warmth. The walls, once devoid of color, now reflect the boy's vibrant artwork, each piece telling a story of growth, of pain and healing, and of a future that's taking shape, piece by piece. Every day is an opportunity for them to build on what they've already established: trust, love, and resilience. But it's not just about academics or structure. It's about helping Elijah believe in himself again. Samuel takes him to the park on weekends, where they play sports or just talk about life. Sometimes they'll sit quietly, side by side, watching the sun set over the horizon, grateful for the moment of peace. Samuel makes sure that Elijah experiences the simple joys of childhood: the laughter, the fun, and the sense of wonder that comes with it. Though the challenges are never completely gone, the bond between Samuel and Elijah only strengthens as time passes. The boy's trust in Samuel has deepened to the point where he no longer feels the fear of abandonment that once controlled him. He knows that Samuel will always be there, not just as a guardian, but as a true father figure, offering guidance, love, and protection. One evening, after dinner, they sit together in the living room, quietly reflecting on their journey. Elijah is now a little older, his demeanor more mature, but there's still a spark in his eyes, a reminder of the boy who once asked Samuel for help, a boy who had no idea how much that one simple request would change both their lives forever. Samuel looks over at Elijah, a soft smile on his face, proud of the progress they've made. "How's the drawing coming along?" he asks. Elijah nods enthusiastically. "It's good. I'm working on a new one. It's about us and how far we've come. I want to remember how we started and where we are now." Samuel's heart swells with emotion. "I'm proud of you, Elijah. You've worked so hard, and you've come so far." Elijah looks up at him, his voice quiet but filled with conviction. "I couldn't have done it without you, Samuel. You're my family." The words resonate deeply with Samuel. They are simple, but they carry the weight of everything they've been through, everything they've overcome together. In that moment, Samuel knows that this boy, this young man before him, is no longer just a child he was helping. Elijah is his son, in every way that matters. The future is still full of unknowns. There will be hurdles, setbacks, and moments of uncertainty. But for the first time in their lives, they face those challenges together, hand in hand. And with each passing day, they grow stronger, more resilient, and more committed to the life they are building. As the video draws to a close, the camera lingers on Samuel and Elijah sitting side by side, their bond unmistakable. There's a quiet peace in the air and a sense of hope that no matter what the future brings, they will face it as a family, bound by love, trust, and the promise to never let go. The screen fades to black, leaving the lasting image of their shared moment, a symbol of the strength of their relationship and the bright future they will continue to build together. As time passed, Samuel and Elijah gradually built a stable life after all the struggles. No longer were their days filled with uncertainty and fear. Their lives had transformed into something full of warmth, laughter, and love, something both of them had never dared to hope for. Samuel, with all his love and care, continued to support Elijah, not just in his studies, but in everyday life as well. The boy, now growing older, began to realize that he truly had a father by his side, someone who was always ready to protect and guide him. Samuel didn't just teach Elijah academic lessons, but also helped him develop values that would guide him through life. Every evening, after finishing his homework, they would sit down together and talk about dreams, goals, and the possibilities of the future. Samuel reminded Elijah that no matter how difficult life might get, if he believed in himself and kept working hard, the future would always be bright. Their home, once cold and uncertain, now felt full of life. The walls, once bare, now reflected the boy's vibrant artwork, each piece telling a story of growth, pain, healing, and hope. Every day, they added new memories, building on their trust, love, and resilience. But it wasn't just about academics or structure. It was about Elijah rediscovering his confidence. Samuel made sure the boy enjoyed the simple joys of childhood too. On weekends, they would go to the park together, playing sports or simply enjoying each other's company. Sometimes they would sit in silence, side by side, watching the sunset and appreciating the calm moment of peace. Though life wasn't without its challenges, the bond between Samuel and Elijah grew stronger with each passing day. The boy, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now trusted Samuel fully. He no longer feared being abandoned. He knew that Samuel would always be there, not just as a guardian, but as a true father figure, offering guidance, love, and protection. One evening, after dinner, they sat together in the living room, quietly reflecting on how far they had come. Elijah was now a little older, more mature in his outlook, yet still with that spark of childhood wonder in his eyes. Samuel, looking over at the boy, smiled softly, proud of how far he had come. "How's your drawing coming along?" Samuel asked, genuinely interested. Elijah nodded enthusiastically. "It's good. I'm working on a new one. It's about us, how far we've come. I want to remember this, how we started it and where we are now." Samuel's heart swelled with emotion. "I'm proud of you, Elijah. You've worked hard and you've come so far." Elijah looked up at him, his voice soft but full of sincerity. "I couldn't have done it without you, Samuel. You're my family." Those words meant everything to Samuel. They weren't just words. They were the culmination of everything they had been through together. In that moment, Samuel knew that this boy, who had once come to him in desperation, was no longer just a child he was helping. Elijah was his son, in every sense of the word. The future may still hold uncertainties, but they now faced it together, hand in hand. With each day, they grew stronger, more resilient, and more committed to building a life that was filled with love, trust, and hope. As the video nears its end, it shows Samuel and Elijah sitting side by side, their bond undeniable. The air is peaceful, filled with the quiet joy of knowing that they are in this together. Despite all the challenges, they know they have each other, and that's all they need to face whatever comes next. The screen fades to black, leaving the lasting image of their shared moment, a reflection of their love and the bright future ahead, built by their unwavering commitment to one another. In a world where we often face uncertainty and challenges, the bond between Samuel and Elijah stands as a testament to the transformative power of love, compassion, and unwavering commitment. What began as a simple plea for help from a boy in dire need turned into a journey that reshaped both their lives. Samuel, a successful millionaire, could have easily turned his back, focusing on his career and his own life, but instead, he chose to open his heart to Elijah. Through his selflessness, Samuel not only saved a life, but gave Elijah something far more precious: hope, a sense of belonging, and a future filled with love and possibility. Elijah, once lost and alone, found a new family in Samuel, someone who believed in him, supported him, and helped him rise from the ashes of his past. This beautiful story is a powerful reminder of how small acts of kindness can create ripples of change that resonate far beyond our immediate surroundings. It reminds us that the most meaningful connections we form are often the ones we least expect, and that no matter how difficult life may seem, there is always the possibility of a brighter tomorrow, as long as we have people in our lives who care. If you were moved by this incredible journey and felt the warmth of Samuel and Elijah's bond, we ask you to please like, subscribe, and comment below. Your support helps us continue sharing these inspiring stories that remind us all of the power of human connection. Share your own thoughts, reflections, and personal experiences in the comments. We would love to hear how this story touched your heart. What would you have done if you were in Samuel's shoes? Have you ever experienced a moment where kindness changed your life or someone else's? Your story could inspire someone who needs to hear it right now. Let's keep spreading hope, one story at a time. In a world that sometimes feels too dark, together we can shine a light. So, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more heartwarming tales of love, kindness, and resilience. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Your support means the world. Together, we can make a difference, one heart at a time. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to share the love.